Welcome back to our channel. Today's two red flags are triangulation and abuse by proxy. The first insight we're using comes from Mark Fennell from his YouTube channel by the same name. On his channel, Mark does a great job simplifying and unpacking toxic psychological dynamics, especially the kinds of patterns we see narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths engaging in. Here's what he says about triangulation.
A mean person never acts alone. They always need someone else. A mean person will be mean to you, but they will also want other people to be mean to you on their behalf. And this is actually called triangulation. Toxic people, narcissistic people, manipulators, they all use this technique, so be watchful of it. They try and get other people to attack you with the same thing that they've been attacking you about, because they know this. They know that when you have a group of people telling one person a specific message, most likely it's going to get through and it's going to break you down. It's manipulation 101.
Mark has once again brilliantly and amazingly cut to the core of a very complex psychological concept in very simple terms. Please give his channel a sub. Self-confessed and self-aware diagnosed sociopath Kanika Batra puts it like this on her YouTube channel.
The first and most useful tactic is triangulation. This is second nature to us, but for neurotypicals, you probably don't do it very often. Now, to make this simple, triangulation is divide and conquer. This has happened in a friendship group that I've been in. I didn't like this one particular person, and I wanted to make sure they weren't included in any of our activities or our events. And the way I did this was turning other people against this person, but in a very intimate setting. So I would tell one particular person what this person is saying about them. This is not necessarily true. In fact, patently it wasn't true. It was false. And then to the other person, I would be telling them the same thing, except vice versa. Most of the time, I'd be straight up lying. Sometimes I'd just be exaggerating. But if you do have a morsel of truth in there, people will believe you. And that's where you get that perfect form of manipulation. Once they're divided, you're number one. There's a bonus with this too. You're gonna look so good in the eyes of both of them.
Okay, a few quick questions, quick reflections on the mechanics of triangulation now that Kanika has revealed her dirty trick. Go on and give her a sub, by the way, because this information is valuable. The first point is that narrative control is gained through the isolation of each perspective. At the end of this twisted game of lies, aka triangulation, Kanika said that each person ended up liking her. Why? Because each person only heard about reality from the abuser. No one got a chance to directly compare or fact-check anything. 2. People become emotionally triggered, which creates an escalating feedback loop, which seems to confirm everything. As we've covered in the past, abusers put you into a deep state of derp by triggering your pain with feelings of betrayal or heightening your suspicion. An abuser can get you to explode with emotions, and there's no time to stop reacting and start responding since everything feels so urgent. But here's the most insidious part. Once people start exploding with emotional reactions based on believing negative things about each other, their behavior then literally appears to confirm the lies, the fictional narrative. Diagnosed sociopath Kanika Batra says that most of the time I'd be straight up lying, but sometimes I'd greatly exaggerate to provide the morsel of truth that makes the story believable. This lines up with what I've said in the past, that pathological liars use the kernel of truth technique to make their lies believable. It also explains reaction formation. Remember, Dr. Sam Vaknin said this about reaction formation.
So, the psychopathic cult leader and the exploiter within the inducer and the exploiter within this conspiracy, within the smear campaign, they split themselves, they split other people, and then what they do, they take the part of themselves that they cannot live with, that they cannot accept, and they project it onto the target and the victim, attributing to the target or the victim everything they have done wrong. Every trait they find every trait of theirs that they find intolerable and unbearable. This is known as reaction formation.
By drawing from themselves and projecting onto their target, narcissists, sociopaths like Kanika, and psychopaths are able to provide the kernel of truth that makes their story sound believable. The narrative control exercised by triangulators traps others in a lie matrix. A typical triangulator, which would be a narcissist sociopath like Kanaka or a psychopath, wants to control the narrative because reality does not offer them enough control. The need for control is so pathological, so deep-seated, that they are able to take others into a fictional world created by their lies and trap them there, as Kanaka has done with persons X and Y. Persons X and Y may now permanently hate each other because they are still stuck in Kanaka's lie matrix. The insidious nature of triangulators, their chronic dishonesty, makes it likely for them to take you out of context and rob you of consent for the purpose of creating false narratives. Even if someone said something neutral about their intended target, triangulators will restate what that other person said as if it were in agreement with them. The point is to destroy a person, not concern themselves with the truth. Flying monkeys are generated through triangulation and pushed into abuse by proxy by narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths. What is abuse by proxy? Elizabeth Shaw from the YouTube channel Understanding Narcissism breaks it down. Shaw knows how to explain narcissistic behavior and manipulation in a way that's easy to recognize in real life.
Abuse by proxy is a manipulation tactic that narcissistic individuals use by getting others to harass, stalk, or intimidate their victim on the narcissist's behalf. Instead of directly confronting their target, instead of directly stalking or harassing or intimidating their target, the narcissist will enlist third parties, their enablers or their flying monkeys. They will use friends, family members, even legal systems to continue their abusive behaviour, often leaving the victim feeling isolated and overwhelmed. In many cases, the people acting as the proxies may not even realise that they're being used by the narcissist. The narcissist often presents themselves as the victim in the situation, spinning a narrative where the real victim is portrayed as being unreasonable or even abusive. This tactic works particularly well in custody battles, social circles, or in the work environment.
Narcissists, sociopaths, and psychopaths have a trigger focus. They would like to make you emotionally explode. They select the people who are going to act out against you carefully for that purpose. While they'll take any help that they can get, they may prioritize certain people in the hopes that they are going to do the most damage. For example, if narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths were to choose people to triangulate into a conflict with me, they might notice that there are two types of people that I tend to think very highly of. First, you have righteous Christian warriors, men and women of action, who don't just speak it, they live it. Second are what I would call educators who brought me out of the Dunning-Kruger effect and who live righteous, principled lives, who understand that money can be a root of evil and turn it down frequently to stay righteous. These are the kinds of folks narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths would especially target to crush me with. In any resistance against narcissists, sociopaths, or psychopaths, you have to get real comfortable with rejecting unjustified guilt. The danger that social media generates through connecting people, millions, possibly billions of them, is that if you're not careful, you won't just be a witness to a conflict, you'll be recruited into one. Gee, we have a situation where it's 50 people against one, 1,000 people against one, 100,000 people against one. Who is the bully in all of this? I guess that's a real thinker. Triangulation doesn't need a person to be malicious. It just needs your participation, so please don't lend your voice to what you haven't verified. Nobody who is an adult should walk around saying, "Hear from the other side." What for? Or, I don't think the accused should hear what is being said against them. Mosaic law was established over 3,000 years ago, preventing that nonsense. The final insight we're using comes from licensed therapist Jamie Kennedy, the creator of Recollected Self, a YouTube channel focused on understanding narcissistic abuse, trauma, and psychological manipulation. Here's the last important observation Jamie shares about triangulators. Triangulation and abuse by proxy don't just spread conflict, they manufacture a version of reality where the wrong person is blamed, the truth is buried, and everyone else unknowingly helps it happen. Intentions alone are not enough. We must also be responsible. Scripture warns us in Matthew 7:22-23. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, and then I will declare to them, I never knew you. In Scripture, sincerity is not a substitute for truth or responsibility. We are not merely called to have good intentions. We're called to pursue what's actually true. Thank you so much for joining me on this video. Much love, and God bless.